Usually when we think about a monster story, there are, well, certain expectations, like a vampire lurking in a gothic castle or, I don't know, a werewolf howling under a full moon.
Right. It's a classic struggle, the forces of normalcy banding together to fight back against absolute chaos.
Exactly. But imagine a completely different scenario. Imagine if, instead of calling a priest or some superhero, a heavily armed paramilitary team descends from helicopters. They capture that werewolf and they lock it in a sterile concrete cell.
Yeah, and then they slap a barcode on its forehead and force a team of scientists to fill out a 40-page risk assessment form.
Right, in triplicate. It is just wild.
It really is. You take the terrifying, mind-bending unknown and you just, forcefully file it away under T for threat. What's fascinating here is that it is the absolute definition of bureaucratic horror.
That is the genius behind the SCP Foundation. What started as a single creepy internet post back in 2007 has somehow mutated into what American journalism called potentially the largest collaborative writing project in human history. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Absolutely. Because what we are about to explore today isn't just internet fiction. It is a really fascinating case study in crowdsourced mythology and decentralized storytelling.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into a comprehensive Wikipedia article detailing the SCP Foundation, specifically for you, the listener. We want to explore the tragedy and triumph of this open-source universe.
Right, we are looking at how thousands of anonymous strangers built a universe together, creating a mythos that genuinely rivals massive corporate franchises in its complexity.
But before we look at the real-world creators, we need to establish the sheer scale of the fictional universe they built. So in-universe, SCP stands for Special Containment Procedures.
Yes, and informally, the staff use it as an acronym for their core motto, which is Secure, Contain, Protect.
Which sounds so official, and they are this international, non-governmental secret society. They operate completely independently of any national government on Earth, answering only to this mysterious 13-member leadership body called the O5 Council, or the Overseers.
And their primary goal is to capture and study paranormal entities. They do this to protect humanity, sure, but their broader mandate is to maintain the masquerade of normalcy, right? They hide the truth from the public to prevent mass hysteria.
It makes me think of the Men in Black, but, stripped of all the slick Hollywood glamour, the cool suits, and the quirky jokes. This is an organization run by hyper-pragmatic, ruthless bureaucrats.
Very ruthless, yeah.
To keep these anomalies contained, they use undercover agents and these elite paramilitary units called mobile task forces. But here is the darkest part. To figure out how these monsters work, they use D-class personnel.
Oh, the D-class, yeah. That is grim.
It really is. These are disposable human test subjects, usually death row convicts, forced into slave labor and used as literal lab rats.
The psychology behind that setup is what makes the universe so uniquely terrifying. Because the horror isn't achieved through graphic gore or cheap jump scares. It is entirely systemic. The articles on the site are written as mock confidential scientific reports. They use a detached, pseudo-academic voice. A researcher will describe a creature tearing a D-class subject apart with the same mundane tone you might use to describe a high school chemistry experiment.
And they censor words with black bars and the phrase, data expunged. It gives you this creeping dread, making you feel like an unauthorized intruder who stumbled onto a classified government server.
Exactly. And that clinical tone emphasizes the sheer arrogance of the Foundation. They really believe they can quantify the inexplicable. But, the Foundation is not the only player on the board.
Oh, right, the groups of interest.
Yeah, the writers introduced rival factions to flesh out the geopolitics of this shadow world. Yeah, the Chaos Insurgency, which is a splinter group of former Foundation agents who actively want to weaponize these anomalies.
Then there is the Global Occult Coalition, a secret paramilitary agency under the United Nations. Their philosophy is drastically simpler. Don't contain the anomalies, just destroy them.
Right. And on the flip side, you have the Serpent's Hand. They are a militant group that actually advocates for the rights of anomalous beings. They believe humanity should just live alongside the magic.
To manage all this chaos, the Foundation categorizes every single thing they catch into object classes. Safe means it is trivial to contain. Like if you put it in a locker and lock the door, it stays there.
Right. Doesn't mean it's harmless, just predictable. Euclid means it requires substantial effort, usually because the anomaly is alive, sentient, or unpredictable. And then Keter is the nightmare tier. These are incredibly difficult or almost impossible to contain.
And my personal favorite, Thaumiel. That is when an anomaly is so powerful and useful that the Foundation actually uses it to contain other Kidder-class anomalies.
This classification system acts as a brilliant structural framework. It gives every aspiring writer on the internet the exact same blank canvas with built-in guardrails to start telling their own story.
So let's look at what people are painting on that canvas, because the sheer variety goes way beyond standard monsters. The spark that lit the entire fire was SCP-173.
Ah, the original.
Yeah. It is described as a humanoid statue made of concrete, rebar, and Krylon brand spray paint. It is completely immobile as long as you are looking directly at it.
But the moment line of sight is broken, even for the fraction of a second it takes to blink, it moves at blinding speeds to snap your neck.
It is terrifying in its simplicity. But the creativity really shines when the Foundation's containment methodology collides with other factions. A perfect example is SCP-1609. This used to be a benevolent magical chair. If you were tired, it would kindly teleport right behind you to give you a seat.
Completely harmless. Until the Global Occult Coalition, the faction that wants to destroy anomalies, captured it and shoved it into a wood chipper.
Which was a terrible idea.
A very bad idea. Destroying an anomaly rarely solves the problem in this universe. Now, SCP-1609 is a sentient, highly aggressive pile of mulch. If anyone acts aggressively near it or wears a military uniform, the mulch teleports directly into their lungs.
It is a brilliant way to show why the Foundation locks things in boxes instead of just blowing them up. And some of these concepts break the laws of physics in completely mundane places, like SCP-3008.
Oh, the infinite IKEA.
Yes, it is an abandoned IKEA store, but when you walk inside, it contains a seemingly infinite pocket dimension. Trapped customers have actually formed tribal societies, building sprawling forts out of flat-pack furniture to survive against monstrous, faceless IKEA employees.
Who attack them when the starlights go out at night, right?
Yeah.
The setting is absurd, but it is treated with absolute deadpan seriousness. That juxtaposition is the lifeblood of the SCP universe.
Okay, but I have to push back on one of these entries. I was reading through the source material, and there is SCP-426. It is a toaster.
A classic.
Its anomalous property is that anyone talking about it can only refer to the toaster in the first person. Like, I am a toaster. I read that and laughed out loud. Wait, how does a toaster I can only talk about as myself fit into a horror universe?
Well, that gets to the heart of what this massive project actually is. The SCP universe evolved far beyond strict horror. It encompasses urban fantasy and, hard science fiction. The toaster is hilarious on the surface, but it highlights a recurring theme: the vulnerability of the human mind.
Oh, I see.
The anomalies routinely bend our perception of reality. Consider SCP-055. It is classified as an anti-meme.
An anti-meme?
Yeah, a meme is an idea or a piece of information that spreads from person to person. An anti-meme is an idea that actively erases itself from human memory. It is like trying to hold water in your bare hands. Anyone who looks at SCP-055 immediately forgets what it is the second they look away.
Wow, so how do they even know they have it?
The Foundation only knows it exists by meticulously documenting what it is not. The writers are using these sci-fi concepts to explore high-concept philosophical ideas about memory and information theory.
To pull off that level of high-concept philosophy consistently, through the perspective of an emotionally detached researcher, requires incredible discipline. One brilliant author can do that. But scaling that across thousands of anonymous internet writers, that requires a ruthless system. How do they organize a universe this big?
The real-world engine behind this is just as fascinating as the lore. It all started in June of 2007 on the ex-paranormal board of 4chan. An anonymous user, later identified as Wesley Moto 42 Williams, posted that picture of the creepy concrete statue with his short, clinical text description.
That was the 173 post.
Exactly. The format was so immediately compelling that other users started imitating it, writing their own containment procedures.
And by July 2008, the community had outgrown the message boards and moved to a dedicated wiki hosting site called Wikidot because the previous host switched to a paid model. But, rapid growth brought massive problems.
Oh, definitely. By 2009, the site was flooded with poorly written entries. People were writing self-insert superhero characters instead of clinical horror.
So the lore was getting incredibly messy.
The community recognized the threat, so they initiated an event they call the Great Purge. Between September and December of 2009, senior members reviewed literally every single article. If an entry wasn't up to their rigorous standard, it was decommissioned and dumped into an archive called SCP Classic.
That purge fundamentally changed the trajectory of the project. It established a culture of brutal quality control that defines the site to this day. It is basically Darwinian evolution for storytelling.
Right, you can't just drop a story onto the site and call it canon.
No, you have to apply to post. Every article has a dedicated discussion page for constructive, often relentless critique. The wiki runs on a strict upvote and downvote system. If an article drops below a certain negative threshold, it is permanently deleted, no exception.
It is a grueling gauntlet. Only the absolute scariest or most unique ideas survive natural selection to become official lore. And that system allows for a staggering scale of production.
Yeah, the numbers are insane.
As of late 2025, there are over 9,800 SCP anomalies documented on the main site, alongside over 6,300 Foundation tales, which are short stories. By 2024, they opened up Series X for anomalies in the 9,000s, and there are 15 official language branches.
With nearly 10,000 world-ending monsters, the timeline must be an absolute nightmare to keep straight.
Well, it would be if they tried to maintain a single timeline. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the voting system allows them to operate without a central canon. Think of it less like a single linear story and more like a massive public sandbox.
Ah, okay.
The wiki provides the toys, the foundation, the object classes, and any writer can step into the sandbox. Contributors create their own canons with hub pages. This allows for infinite overlapping timelines.
It is the ultimate collaborative playground. It is so compelling that it has attracted professional authors to contribute, like Max Landis and Adrian Onan. But because this massive universe was built on an open-source platform, it eventually collided with real-world legal nightmares.
This brings us to the fundamental vulnerability of their licensing. Back in 2008, when they moved to Wikidot, the default copyright license was a Creative Commons Attribution Share-alike license. The SCP staff essentially adopted this accidentally.
For those who aren't copyright lawyers, that specific license CC BY SA 3.0 means anyone in the world can use, adapt, or commercially sell the content. The only catch is that you must credit the original creators, and you must release your new work under the exact same open license.
Right, you can't lock it down. And for years, it functioned beautifully. But in 2019, a Russian resident named Andriy Doksin realized the commercial potential. He filed a trademark for the SCP Foundation name and logo in Russia.
Which he didn't even create.
No, but he used it as a weapon. He suppressed other creators from selling merchandise, and he threatened to use the Russian government to completely shut down the official Russian branch of the wiki.
A classic trademark troll. And for a decentralized community, that is an existential threat. So the community launched a counterattack. They organized a legal fundraiser to fight the trademark. Their goal was $50,000, but the internet rallied. Massive YouTubers like Markiplier amplified the cause, and they ended up raising $140,000.
Incredible, really. And after a grueling legal battle, the Russian Federal Anti-Monopoly Service ruled against Doksin. By 2022, his trademark was officially canceled.
But the legal and ethical woes didn't stop there. They also had to grapple with the original sin of the wiki, which was SCP-173 itself.
The image, right?
Yes, that very first 4chan post featured a photograph of a real-world sculpture called Untitled 2004, created by a Japanese artist named Izumi Kato. The original poster never asked for permission.
It existed in a legal gray area for years. Finally, in 2014, the wiki staff contacted Kato. He reluctantly allowed them to use the image strictly for non-commercial purposes, but warned he would take legal action if anyone monetized his sculpture's likeness.
But with how massive SCP has become, it's impossible to stop Rogue fans from making t-shirts or games featuring that statue design.
Exactly. So in February 2022, the SCP staff made a fascinating decision. They voluntarily removed the image of Kato's sculpture from the site entirely. They publicly stated that the artist's original vision had been forcibly hijacked by internet culture.
Wow.
Yeah, they loved the monster, but they respected the artist enough to step back.
Let me ask you a pointed question about all this. If the content is entirely open and free, and it invites trademark trolls and hijacked art, isn't that a massive vulnerability? Why not just lock down the IP to protect it?
That is the core tension of the entire project. It's a perfect example of what legal scholars call the tragedy of the Creative Commons.
Right.
Like, open licensing absolutely invites legal trolls, but it is also the exact reason the community could crowdfund a $140,000 defense in days. The openness is their greatest weakness, but unequivocally their ultimate strength.
And that open source nature is the very reason the SCP universe was able to escape containment and explode into mainstream pop culture. Because anyone can adapt these stories as long as they share alike, the creative output has been staggering.
Literary critics constantly compare the writing on the wiki to H.P. Lovecraft. They note how the tension between the detached scientific style and cosmic horror creates a totally unique subgenre. But the most visible impact is in video games.
Oh, absolutely. You have direct adaptations like the 2012 indie game SCP Containment Breach. That game literally popularized the terrifying blink mechanic in survival horror. And there's a survival game, The Store is Closed, set inside an infinite IKEA, which actually faced real legal threats from the real IKEA over the in-game furniture designs.
Which is pretty funny. And the spiritual successors are even larger. Remedy Entertainment's AAA game control centers around the Federal Bureau of Control, a direct homage to the SCP Foundation. And the 2023 viral hit Lethal Company draws heavily on the mythos of disposable workers dealing with impossible monsters.
The aesthetic has bled into every medium. There's the Confinement animated series, the Overlord short film, audio dramas like Find Us Alive, and even physical graphic novels. It is incredible that an internet forum post from 2007 became the blueprint for millions of dollars in the gaming industry. It's like a modern, crowdsourced Grimm Brothers fairy tale collection.
Because anyone can take these concepts and adapt them, the Foundation has effectively achieved its own form of immortality.
It is a fascinating shift. We usually expect mythology to be handed down from a massive corporation, but the SCP Foundation proves that in an era of massive corporate media monopolies, an independent, community-driven crowd can build a universe just as rich and influential as Marvel or Star Wars.
Through the power of collective imagination and brutal peer review, I want to leave you with a final thought drawn from the graphic novel SCP-5000Y. We spent this whole time looking at the Foundation as the protectors of humanity against anomalies.
Right. The good guys, mostly.
But consider this chilling hypothetical for a second. What if one day, for reasons unknown, the Foundation's cold pragmatic ethics committee looks at the data and decides that the ultimate anomaly that needs to be neutralized is humanity itself?
Wow. So the monster isn't just in the box anymore. We might be the ones inside the box. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. There are thousands of classified files waiting for you out there, so keep exploring. And remember, don't blink.